So it's hard to recall anyone ever being thrown off Twitter for lying, for disinformation. The people who are thrown off Twitter are the ones who persist in telling the truth. And that's why Alex Berenson is not on Twitter. Alex Berenson persisted in telling the truth using the data during the span of the COVID pandemic. And for doing that, Twitter accused him of spreading dangerous disinformation. So he was bounced off, he was silenced. But unlike most people who are silenced by Twitter, Berenson sued, and his lawsuit goes to court tomorrow. Alex Berenson is the author of Pandemia. His work is on Substack, and we're happy to have him join us tonight. Alex Berenson, thanks so much for coming on. So this goes to court tomorrow. Tell us where you are in this.
So, yes. So we've filed a lawsuit, or I filed a lawsuit in December. Twitter responded with a motion to dismiss, which is standard. We responded, and then Twitter sent out one more response, and there'll be a hearing on this tomorrow. Our lawsuit, I think, is stronger than a lot of other lawsuits that have not survived the motion to dismiss stage. In some ways, it's a very interesting moment because I am, like everyone else, I'm waiting to see what Elon does with the platform. But right now, Elon does not own Twitter, and I am not allowed on Twitter. And my free speech, my rights, Twitter was the most powerful way I had to petition the government, and there's no question that government officials spoke out publicly in July and August of 2021, and that contemporaneous with that, Twitter's attitude towards me hardened immediately and immeasurably. Now, since then, as you say, I'm on Substack, and I have a large following on Substack, but my power to petition the government has been greatly diminished. I hope people will, people who have not signed up for the Substack will do that, but there's no substitute. Harmeet is correct. There's no substitute for Twitter.
So may I just ask, if you believe, and certainly if you can prove, that Twitter acted in response to a command or a suggestion from the United States government, that's a prima facie violation of the First Amendment, correct?
Yes, but that's very, very difficult to do. Right. We have a number of claims in the suit. I think in some ways the most interesting claims are not the state actor claims. Those are difficult to prove. Unlike Harmeet, I'm very happy that Twitter is headquartered in California because California has very strong free speech protections. And it also has a section of its civil code that essentially makes clear that Twitter should be defined as a common carrier for the purposes of California law. So I have protections under California law that, if enforced, would essentially force Twitter to allow me back on the platform. Twitter is a large private company, and California courts have said before that shopping malls, for example, must allow people to speak, even if their speech is not what the malls want. Twitter is much more powerful than a shopping mall. And I want to say something else, Tucker, which is there's this notion on the left that somehow first of all, I never harassed anybody on Twitter. As you said, I was kicked off for one reason and one reason only, which was telling the truth. My final tweet said it doesn't stop infection or transmission about the vaccines. And I think everyone in the world would agree about the mRNA vaccines that that's correct now. But the point is there's this idea that somehow if we allow people free speech, there'll be this complete breakdown. That's nonsense. Twitter just needs to allow the kinds of speech online that are allowed offline, and with the same limits. You can't scream in somebody's ear for 4 hours offline, and Twitter can do that online. Twitter can have the same reasonable limits. But you have to let people express their political views, and truth has to be a defense. You were never accused of saying something untrue. They never proved that. They hated the fact that you were telling the truth, and that's not acceptable in a free country. Alex Berenson, we're rooting for you for sure. Proved it. They couldn't prove it. It was absolutely, yes. Thanks, Tucker.
They never even tried. They never even tried. It was just like, you're inconvenient. Shut up. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Good to see you tonight.